What if I told you that a massive asteroid, named the God of Chaos, might be heading straight for Earth, sooner than anyone thought? Now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, right, I've heard this before, but here's where it gets real. Scientists recently revised some data, and it turns out we might have a bigger problem on our hands. The asteroid, officially known as Apophis, was supposed to fly by us safely in 2029. That was the plan. But new studies are saying that even something as small as a 2-foot-wide rock could knock this giant asteroid off its course. Yup, something as tiny as that could send Apophis straight into a collision course with Earth. I mean, imagine that an object the size of a grand piano, floating around in space, could shift an asteroid that's over 1,000 feet wide. It sounds like science fiction, but this is our reality. Let's dive into how this could happen and why experts are starting to get a little more nervous. Alright, so let's talk about Apophis for a second. This isn't just any space rock. It's a 340-meter wide asteroid, which is huge. That's roughly the height of the Empire State Building, just floating around in space. And it's not just its size that's scary. The asteroid is named after Apophis, the Egyptian god of chaos and destruction. Not exactly comforting, right? And get this, if it ever hit Earth, the impact would be like 1,000 megatons of TNT going off all at once. Just to put that into perspective, that's about 65,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Yeah, that's the kind of destruction we're talking about. Watch our detailed video on Apophis by tapping on the top right corner. You can also find the link to the video in description below. Now, don't panic yet, we're going to break down why scientists were originally confident this wouldn't be a problem, and why that's starting to change. So, here's where things get interesting and a little unnerving. Recently, a study published in the Planetary Science Journal caught everyone's attention. According to Canadian astronomer Paul Wiegert and his team, Apophis's path could actually change thanks to something super small, like really small. Picture a rock in space, just about 2 feet wide, that's about the size of a skateboard, could shift Apophis's course. Now, you might be thinking, how could something that tiny change the path of a 340-meter wide asteroid? It sounds crazy, right? But space is weird like that. Here's the deal. There's this thing called a keyhole trajectory. Think of it as a small, invisible target in space. If Apophis passes through that keyhole, it could get sucked into Earth's gravity in a way that causes it to hit us later on. We're talking about a window of just a few kilometers, but if Apophis passes through it, it could be catastrophic. It's all about timing and positioning. A tiny shift could have massive consequences, and that's what these scientists are worried about. They calculated that even a rock the size of a piano, around 3.4 meters wide, could do enough damage to push Apophis into that keyhole trajectory by 2029. And if that happens, well, let's just say the odds of impact go way up. Alright, let's talk about the worst case scenario here. If Apophis were to hit Earth, let's just say it wouldn't be pretty. We're looking at an impact equivalent to 1,000 megatons of TNT. Now, that number might be hard to grasp, so let me break it down for you. The asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, that impact was around 100 million megatons, so Apophis wouldn't be quite that catastrophic. But don't let that fool you. The 1,000 megaton impact of Apophis is still 65,000 times stronger than the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Just imagine that level of destruction, but on a much larger scale. It would instantly flatten cities, trigger massive earthquakes, and possibly cause tsunamis if it hit an ocean. We're talking about widespread destruction, not just in the immediate impact zone, but across the planet. And while the chances of that happening are still low, it's the what-if factor that keeps experts up at night. It's enough to make anyone nervous, right? Now, before we all start panicking, let's be clear. The chances of Apophis hitting Earth in 2029 are actually really low. We're talking about a 2.7% chance. To put that in perspective, you've got a better chance of getting hit by lightning or winning the lottery than of Apophis slamming into Earth in 2029. But here's the thing, just because the odds are low doesn't mean we can relax. Space is unpredictable, and we're still figuring out the long-term risks. What if that tiny 2-foot wide object does nudge Apophis into that keyhole trajectory? Or what if future studies show the odds creeping up over time? And remember, just because the odds are low now doesn't mean they'll stay that way forever. Even if we're safe in 2029, there are future close encounters with Apophis. As scientists continue tracking its path, they might find new factors that change everything. So while we can breathe easy for now, there's always that lingering tension that Apophis could be a problem later on. That's the crazy part about space. It's full of surprises, and sometimes they're not the kind you want. Here's another twist to the story. Since 2021, Apophis has been pretty much out of sight for astronomers, and here's why. Its position relative to Earth and the Sun has placed it in the daytime sky, making it impossible for our ground-based telescopes to track it. And this blackout period isn't short. We won't be able to keep a close eye on Apophis again until 2027. That's 6 years of not knowing exactly what this massive asteroid is up to. Think about it. We're essentially flying blind during one of the most crucial time periods before its close pass in 2029. But don't worry, scientists aren't just sitting around. There are plans in place to monitor Apophis more closely once we get back into a better viewing window. NASA, along with other space agencies, has developed advanced telescopes and tracking systems that will lock onto Apophis as soon as it's visible again. Plus, there's always a possibility that new space-based telescopes or even future missions could give us more real-time data on Apophis, helping us get a better understanding of its trajectory and potential risks. Until then, we're relying on calculations and projections, but you can bet that as 2029 gets closer, all eyes will be back on Apophis, and for good reason. So, with everything we've just talked about, the low odds, the potential devastation, and the challenges of monitoring, there's one big question left. Are we truly prepared for a catastrophic asteroid impact? And will the god of chaos surprise us yet? The truth is, we've got some of the brightest minds working on this, but space can be unpredictable. While we hope that Apophis passes us by safely in 2029, the future is never set in stone, especially when it comes to massive asteroids hurtling through space. But here's the good news. Scientists are keeping a close watch, and as we get closer to 2029, there will be more updates and more research. So, if you want to stay updated on what happens with Apophis and any other space threats out there, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We will be covering all the latest developments on asteroid monitoring, space exploration, and everything in between.